In 2018, Michigan voters elected a new governor, Gretchen Whitmer. In its new series, Inside Michigan Government, the Michigan Advance will be sitting down and talking to leaders of key state departments about what they do, as well as problems and solutions for Michigan.
Lisa Clark, Director, Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. Let's see, where's a good place to start? So I have 20 years of experience in the public sector, public-private sector, at the intersection of food, energy, and water. Most recently, for the last 8 years, I've been running my own consultancy, doing clean energy public policy work, a company called Five Lakes Energy. I also, as a course of that work, ran a trade association for advanced energy companies. Prior to the time that I was running my own consultancy, I actually was involved in state government in a variety of capacities. So mostly environment, natural resources, agriculture type work. For me, when I think about what gets me out of bed every day, it's really leaving a better Michigan for our kids and grandkids. And that's what I find very motivating. So it was an easy nexus. Yeah, so it's crazy that it's been 4 months. I feel really fortunate because I had the unique opportunity to serve on the governor's transition team. So I was the policy director for the transition team. And in the course of that transition work, I was already in November and December thinking about how do you transition a department, what is the governing philosophy, and then what is the specific work based on the different executables of the department, I guess. And because I was already doing that work, I started having conversations with the governor about what her vision was, what her priorities were for this particular public policy area. However, when I really got excited was when we started talking about commitment to state employees, because I think that like was true for me when I ran my own consulting firm, your people are who you are, and your commitment to your people are what makes an agency, in the same way it was, what made the consulting firm that we grew. Not only did our public policy approach line up, but our commitment and interest in kind of the values and philosophy of the core organization lined up as well. When I think about the structure of Eagle going forward, to me it unites core foundational components of our environmental approach to life altogether. So what do I mean by that? It's climate, it's energy, and it's Great Lakes. And at the core of all of that is our water and our water system, the system of the 5 Great Lakes. Even though we only own 4, we'll take responsibility for the 5th one as well, because we should be responsible for all of them. If you think about landfill work, like that has to do with protecting groundwater, protecting surface water, protecting drinking water. It all goes back to water. If you think about air quality monitoring, again, you're talking about deposition layers, you're talking about, it all comes back to how are we thinking about protecting public health and the environment as our long-term interests. And so in my mind, the structure of Eagle reinforces and aggregates that commitment to those core foundational components. So I, like anyone else on the face of this earth, can't guarantee that we're not going to have another crisis. What I can work to do with the experts in this department is go out there and find problems. And we can commit to being problem solvers. We can commit to doing a better job of finding those problems and of working to solve those problems. We can also commit to building more communication components into the work that we do. With the reorganization, the governor created 2 new roles, the Environmental Justice Public Advocate and the Drinking Water Public Advocate. Those are important positions right up front to give additional avenues into the department so that we have as many listening ears as possible to try to do a better job in the future of identifying those problems and working through them going forward. One of the opportunities at this department is to help communicate to the people of the state of Michigan that our work is in the space of risk mitigation. We cannot eliminate risk. In the same way that, you will drive home tonight in your car and something could happen to you, there are things in our environment that can cause things to happen to us as well. What we need to do is we've got to get as cleaned up as possible. We've got to make drinking water as safe as possible for the citizens of the state of Michigan. So then the question becomes, becomes, what does as safe as possible mean? One of the things that the department has embarked upon at the governor's direction is building a MCL, or a number, to determine what we're cleaning up to for PFAS. And so the Michigan PFAS Action Response Team has brought together a group of scientists to study and make recommendations around that number. And that's a really abbreviated schedule. They're getting us recommendations back early summer that will then be part of the regulatory process. And the regulatory process lives at the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, so that we will go through a rule-making process to set a number for PFAS, an MCL number for PFAS. And this has not happened in very many places. So there is some science for us to draw on, but we definitely are going to need to identify where we need additional information in order to do so. New Jersey has an MCL. There's a couple other states that have looked at an MCL, but it's not common across the United States, and it's not something that our colleagues at EPA have moved out ahead of us on either. So we're working with EPA in the course of doing this, and we'll be at the forefront. It's a very interesting challenge, and one that we're working really hard to protect the people of the state of Michigan on. It's definitely something that the folks in our Water Resources Division pay a lot of attention to. I think a broad thing to think about that is really important is the habitat of the straits. So part of the reason the straits are so important is because they are this location where we have the two water bodies coming together, obviously, and because they are so unique, the nature of our beautiful inland seas. I can't rattle off a number for you off the top of my head in terms of economic impact. I think that the important thing to remember is the natural resources impact and the habitat concerns that would happen if we had an accident in the straits. And I think that's something that, again, our scientists spend a lot of time understanding and putting into the mix when they work through the regulatory and permitting decisions that cross our desks. So I think that in order to make the best decisions in this department, you have to balance a lot of different interests. So certainly it is the interests of the citizens, as those of us that live in this beautiful state. Of course, we connect to our mission of protecting public health and the environment, but then there are also a variety of players involved in terms of the permittees, best use of the environment. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that come into play. Typically, when we work through the permitting process and the regulatory process, there are some things that are required by statute in terms of open hearings and the kind of conversations and feedback you'll get. But in my mind, you get to the best decisions if you can have as many voices at the table as possible, as early as possible. So that's what we try to do. Wonderful department to be affiliated with. I'm excited about the enthusiasm that everyone brings to the job to protecting public health and the environment. And I think that while we are really excited about having launched the new department poetically, as I said earlier, on Earth Day, at the end of the day, the name of the department doesn't matter. What does matter is everyone's commitment to the work in front of us. And I feel like I'm surrounded by some incredibly passionate experts who bring a lot to the table in order to do that.